Dear all, so we are moving to the next part of the second lecture, that is how the trade and international trade and economic development is related. Okay, what is the relationship between trade and economic development? Whether the trade leads to more economic development or not, that is the question. So normally, most of the economists are in the view that international trade promotes the growth and enhances the economic welfare and efficient utilization of factor endowments and availability of products. So it ensures so many things. So it promotes the growth and it promotes the economic welfare, and there will be efficient utilization of the resources. So all these things will happen and the economic development also will increase. That is a general idea. Most of the people, most of the economists are in view of this. But still, and also there are, that the trade multiplier effect. As you might be knowing investment multiplier of Keynes, and the same there is a trade multiplier. So if there is a more export, it will leads to more income. More income means more employment. More employment means more production. So more production means again more export. So there will be multiplier effect through the trade. Okay. So always the international trade will leads to the economic development. That is also this trade multiplier effect is also supporting this argument. Then according to the classical, they also said that the international trade will increase the productivity and national wealth. So they have talked about the comparative and absolute cost advantage theory. It is based on this, and on that basis they said that always international trade will leads to the increase the productivity and it will leads to the national wealth. Okay, so this is the idea of classicals, but there is a controversy regarding this. The controversy is in the case of developing nations, developing countries, whether the developing countries are able to get benefit of this international trade. So this is another debate. So there are two views, okay, two schools, two sides for this. So the different economists has opinion differently. So Heberler and Cain-Cross, so these are the two economists, argue that trade will lead to the development of even developing countries, no doubt about it. But there are some other economists, they said that, like Gunnar Myrdal, Prabhishan Singer, and several others argued that the trade is biased in favor of advanced industrial countries. It is not favorable for the developing nations. Okay, so these are the two arguments. So if the trade will be biased more towards the advanced countries or developed countries, so that is the argument of a few of the economists. And there is also another words of some of the another people consider the trade as an engine of growth. So trade is a major or important component of growth. So the important person who contributed to this is D.H. Robertson. He made the observation that the trade is an engine of growth. Okay, but later on several people have contributed to this idea, especially Ragnar Naxey has contributed to this idea. But firstly, this Robertson has made this observation that international trade is an engine of growth. So more trade, more growth will happen. And Heberler, another economist, he also said that especially this trade will be beneficial to the less developed nations. and it has led to the it has led to get more benefit for the less developed nations, especially in 19th and 20th century. From the empirical evidence, he opined that it is more beneficial for the less developed nations. According to Heberler, he said that the less developed nations are able to take advantages of the trade because of the four reasons. First, trade provides material means for these less developed nations, whether it is capital good, machinery or raw materials. Secondly, it is there is a transfer of technical knowledge, ideas, know-how and skill and managerial talents, and it is the less developed nations will be able to acquire more of all these. Then thirdly, it is a vehicle of international movement of capital to underdeveloped countries. Normally the underdeveloped countries won't be having that much of capital, so from the developed countries there will be a flow of capital to the less developed countries. Then finally, it is the best anti-monopoly policy and guarantee healthy competition. So this is the idea of Heberler. He said that because of all these reasons, the less developed nations will be getting more benefit through the trade. Okay, but Prebisch Singer thesis or hypothesis or anything, we can say that they have made a thesis of secular deterioration thesis. Secular deterioration thesis. What it is? Gunnar Myrdal and Rolf Prebisch and Hans Singer, these all are the persons who said that it is not beneficial to the less developed nations. Especially Rolf Prebisch and Hans Singer made this thesis. That's why it is known as Prebisch Singer thesis, secular deterioration thesis. Okay, they said that the primary exporting countries, particularly those of the third world countries, have been experiencing a secular deterioration in terms of trade, which means a large transfer of income from developing countries to the developed nations. Okay, this is the idea of secular deterioration thesis. It says that the primary exporting countries, the countries which export more of primary products like agricultural products, okay, they are experiencing a secular means a continuous deterioration in terms of trade. Their gain from trade will always deteriorate or it will come down always. So it leads to the large transfer of income from the developing nations to the developed nations. So it is not beneficial, or it is not good for the less developed nations, those who are exporting the primary products. This is the idea of Prebisch Singer hypothesis, or we can say Prebisch Singer thesis. Okay, why there is there is no much benefit for the less developed nations? They are producing, or Prebisch Singer producing, three reasons for that. First one is the differences in the elasticity of demand. Because there is a differences in the elasticity of demand, primary products are relatively income inelastic. The agriculture products are income inelastic. Like suppose that you are getting more income, would you buy more tomatoes? No, because you suppose that if you buy a half kg of tomato, you won't buy much. You won't buy much. Suppose that if your income increases, then also you won't buy much. Suppose that your income has increased, whether you will buy more rice? No, there is a limitation. So it is, the primary products are relatively income inelastic, and the manufactured products are more income elastic. So the less developed nations are exporting more of primary products. So if the income increases in the developed nations, they won't buy much. But in the case of manufactured goods, if our income increases, we will buy more manufactured goods. Suppose that if we have a one car, our income has increased, then there is a possibility that we will buy two cars, one for some domestic house purpose, and some for tour purpose. There is a possibility. So it is more of income elastic. That's why always there is a possibility of more gain for the developed nations. And there is secondly, there is a technological change. When the technology is more developed, it reduces the demand for primary products like normal rubber, natural rubber. It was replaced by synthetic rubber now. Why? Because of the technological change. So this is also can happen. Then finally, monopoly power exists in industry than in agriculture. Agriculture, there is no monopoly power, because even the farmers, now the farmers problem, protests are going on there, because they don't have capacity to store all these products. So there is no other option that they will sell out all the products whenever even though the price is less. But it is not in the case of manufactured products, because it is durables. They can store it and they can sell it later also. Okay, so there is no monopoly power exist in industry, than in agriculture. So because of these reasons, less developed nations are getting less benefit from the international trade. So this is the opinion of few of the economists. So this is a controversy between the in the case of less developed nations, always there is a controversy. And also some of the other people also has contributed to this, like the theory of immeasurizing growth, that is developed by Jagdish and Bhagwati. In the last class we have said about him, Jagdish and Bhagwati. So he developed a concept of immeasurizing growth. He said under certain circumstances, the economic expansion and trade may be harmful for the developing nations. It was the idea of Jagdish and Bhagwati. So always the trade and economic expansion may not be good for the developing nations. So it is developed by Jagdish and Bhagwati and also Harry Johnson. So this is also says that the less developed nations may not be able to get benefit from the trade. Then there is another theory, we can say export pessimism. Export pessimism, it was developed by Ragnar Nex. He said that there is a pessimism about the demand of the products of less developed countries from the developed nations. What is a pessimism? Because there is a very less demand in the developed nations to the agriculture products or primary products of less developed nations. So it is known as export pessimism. It means the less developed nations cannot export much of their primary products. So what is the solution for them? So Ragnar Nexe has said that they have a solution of inward looking or import substitution. So then cut down the imports and they can produce whatever they want. It is the best policy for the less developed nations. That is the idea of Ragnar Nexe. So these all are the different contributions to this debate. That's what I say. So finally, what we want to say, the economic development, and so also international trade is related, but at the same time, the international trade will promote the economic development, and it is a general consensus. But if we are coming to the debate of less developed nations, the different people has viewed differently, and there are some people who say that it will the less developed nations will get more benefit, but some of the people have said the less developed nations won't be getting much benefit because of this. So this is the almost I think we have covered 3 portions of today's lecture. So these are the references for these 2 classes, to these 2 videos. Then Ranan Verma, then Francis Cherunilam, then H.G. Mannur, also the text you can refer for all of this. Thank you very much. See you in the next class.